And then my company, Danger Films, kind of got its first start whenever we made a commercial for an HEB contest and won a car. And so we won a car from the, it was just make your own commercial contest, I guess. And won the car with a couple friends, sold it, and took that money to buy a camera and a Mac Pro and get a Final Cut system and everything. And that would have been in 2007. And so anyway, since then, I've graduated and kind of said, do I go into the videography film world or do I get a real job? And so let's go for it. Stacker was a film I had an idea for. I knew I had to go to them first. I couldn't just approach these 10-year-olds through YouTube and be like, hey, can I come to your house and film you? So I went to the league and I got in contact with them, and they had been approached and they'd actually already had like a teaser done for from a Canadian crew trying to do a documentary a couple of years before. They had actually put together 2 30-minute segments a couple years before that aired on ESPN, which was kind of like their national championship, what I filmed, but it was more of like an ESPN type of thing. So they had done a bunch of videography stuff, but they said the thing that won me over is I actually was part of generation 1 of stacking in elementary school, and it just happened that my PE teacher was one of the first people to pick it up in the early 90s. And so whenever, I did it in PE, but just like anything else, you do it for 2 weeks and then it kind of moves on, and there really wasn't much to it at that time. It was even like a different brand of cups. So anyways, by me telling them I was part of, I actually stacked. Won them over and they viewed a couple of my other short films and commercials, and they seemed to like me. So anyways, so yeah, they were very welcoming. The World Championships were pretty much exactly 2 years ago here in Dallas. And it just happened, it's supposed to be in London that year. I guess I talked about that in the film, and then the World Wedding happens, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just have to wait till the next year, but then it was like, about a month before they called and said, hey, it's going to be in Dallas. We went to the World Championship, I got there a day early, filmed, Friday was like kind of the meet and greet stuff, and Saturday, Sunday's the tournament. We brought a crew of, I think, 8 or 9 people up here, just my friends, everyone working for, peanuts, just food money pretty much, just, for the lovely game. Originally we went into it with my partner Chris, and we were just like, we'll just go there, see what happens, maybe this will turn into a documentary short, and it'll be something cool we can make 15 minutes out of. But it's just moving so fast, and there's so many different parts. I had pretty much 0 interview and like talking head. I didn't get to really talk to anyone because we were just trying to capture, and it's just, everyone's going. And so anyways, I got home, and about 2 days later, I was like, Chris, we need to take a tour around the nation. So then that's what we did. So all the in-home interviews were done retroactively, where we kind of had, found the kids that we knew we'd want to interview and whatnot. And so then we did 12 in-home interviews in 13 days, and that was like 6.5 or 7,000 miles. Just Chris and I, in my little Cobalt that I drove up today, filled up the trunk with tons of film gear and staying with friends and family along the way in Motel 6s, and made it happen. Went all the way from Texas to upstate New York, and then all the way to Minneapolis, and we had to backtrack to South Dakota, then go to Colorado, and then back down. So it was a fun trip. I had my handful of, I could tell these were the 5 that were really dominating the sport at that time. But as that sport goes, there's always a new kid that's coming out of the woodwork, and that ended up happening to be the William Pauly from Washington, D.C. in my film. And so anyways, whenever we're there, just by talking to the kids and kind of meeting them, who froze up in front of the camera and who kind of opened up. And so there was one kid named Dominic, he wasn't a world record holder or anything at the time, but during their practices, he's like, okay, this team over here, and he's kind of organizing it all. You could tell that he would be a fun kid to talk to. And then he had a fun mom as well. And so there were probably about 5 or 6 were picked because they were the best. And then another 4 or 5 were picked just because we liked their personalities. I mean, they're also on Team USA, so they're already within the top 0.5% of kids who do this.
Talk a little bit about the growth of the sport of sports stacking, even just from the time when you started producing the documentary to now.
Yeah, so the company officially, Speed Stacks, the company started in the mid-90s by Bob Fox and Larry Goers, and they're the 2 that I feature, and it's run out of Denver. One of the things is it's taught in 1 in 3 schools in the United States now, elementary schools. So 1 in 3 schools, if you have a child, it's 33% chance that your kid's going to learn this in PE. I believe it's in 30 to 35,000 schools and after-school programs across the nation. Right now, just from talking to them, they kind of feel like they talked about like the mid-90s as like their boom, going to these PE conventions, and they'd go and there was just like, they were the iPad there, you know what I mean? Like they were just, everyone was talking about it. It was like the first year, 96, they went to like 2 PE conventions, Texas being one of them, and that's how my teacher found out about it. And the next year was like 4 PE conventions, and it was 15 because I guess they do them by state. And then by their 4th year, they went to all 50 PE conventions across the entire nation. And so that was like 99, 2000. And that's when it really kind of implemented into the schools. With YouTube coming out, it kind of took it from something you do in school for 2 weeks, like what I did as a kid, to some, now you have competition. Since it's such a niche sport, the kids would stack and you'd be the fastest, out of your 100 kids in your school, but and that's it. You do it for 2 weeks, you put the cups on your shelf and never do it again because you're the fastest. It's that competition that keeps you going to do this for hours and hours. And the kids would always talk about, I saw this kid and that was what that's who inspired me. I saw this kid and that's who inspired me. And you see that in the times, by the competition with YouTube growing and the world growing, and all of a sudden you can be competitive with someone who lives in Chicago and you're in Texas, now allows you to continue to stack. And they'll do Skyping chat where they have their groups. And so anyways, YouTube kind of shrunk the world and gave them competition, which then you see the times drastically drop as that happens.
What was the average? Didn't they say the average age of the last 3 world champions was like 11?
It's been 11 years old, yeah.
And that somehow they're.
There's only been one 13-year-old that's actually won it.
It's slower.
And so, yeah, everyone has their theories. And so that was part of my original thing. Whenever I saw a 10-year-old saying he was the best, I went to the website. And they have a chart, because you can have the fastest time for your age group as well as then the fastest overall time. And I saw the times, and I was like, from day one, I saw that chart that I put in the film where it peaks, or it dips at 10 to 13, and then it starts going up, and I was like, there's no way that's true. And so that was one of my things going in, like I wanted to find out, like that's one of my big questions. And everyone had their own answers. And I personally think it's a combination of everything. It's a little bit of, you get older and all of a sudden it's not cool. And girls are cool, and in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, you don't have any other sports to play. You don't have school sports. But then in junior high, school sports start to come in, and that's what becomes cool. You're on the basketball team. And then it's also, the tables have their regulation height, 36 to 38 inches, which is just an economical thing because that's what a standard folding table is. And so they just, it's the easiest height that they can mass produce.
Right.
So it's tough. I mean, for me, because you're looking straight over and you're taller, and so, you have to stand up. And you'll see it, people will have to spread their legs, and so all of a sudden, all this energy, and as much as you might not be thinking about it, but it is energy that's going into your legs, and your balance is different, and so it becomes a lot harder. But when you're 10 years old, it's right here, perfect height. Like honestly, for me, I stack better sitting down, which I don't think that's legal. I've never actually looked into that. So you have the individual storylines of the kids and their personal adventures, and then you have the storyline of the sport. It was always kind of like the little sport that could, in my mind. It's one of the things I'd always say.
Right.
Where they're this little thing, and they're going after something big, and they're going for it. But then on another level, something that I touched on was just the kind of like bullying aspect of it. It not being a cool thing to a lot of teenage kids in junior high. For me, I think it's phenomenal that these kids, and all parents and adults will see what they do. But even then, it's like, there's no future in it. You can't make money off it. You can't go to college off of it. It's a hobby. You could really pull it down to that. There are 2 videos of, actually Glenn Beck, of all people, of him, and they really upset me, and they're something, and I tried to get these clips in my film, but they turned us down. But it was pretty much, he was saying, it was whenever he had a show on Fox News still, and there's one clip of him saying, he's like, what's wrong with America? This is what's wrong with America. And he shows up clips of these kids stacking. And I know all the kids in there. And they're 10 and 11-year-olds. And there's human faces connected to those. And anything about cup stacking, these kids know about because they just love it. And so these kids are watching TV when they're 10, 12, 13 years old. And they see this man making fun of them and saying, that's what's wrong with America. And that just upset me so much. And so anyways, I really wanted to make a point of that, since I knew this would have such a great appeal to kids within the stacking community and hopefully outside the stacking community, that it's okay to do something that you love even though it's not cool. I mean, one of the kids I was talking about, Dominic from Cleveland, he had the great story. He was a closet stacker, and he used to put up his cups, and so he did it in school and he learned, and everyone else stopped and didn't like it anymore, but for whatever reason it stuck. He got the itch, and he was stacking at home, and every single time his friends would come over for a sleepover, him and his mom would have to put all the cups in the closet and hide everything, and he was embarrassed of, you know, because the rest of his kids, and he would fake it, that he didn't do it anymore. And then, you know, it's incredible the courage that this kid had, you know, at 12. He's like, you know, it just got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. You know, I wanted to be who I was, and if they didn't like that, then tough. And it was just like, that was what it was all about for me. And that's just kind of the bigger picture. You know, it's a fun sport, it's a niche thing, but it's a game, just like basketball is a game. But those type of life lessons, I think, are more important than the game itself.